Okay, let's just dive right in with one of the most mind-bending questions you can possibly ask. Are we real, or are we just characters in someone else's cosmic video game? Now, I know, it sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie, but believe me, the simulation hypothesis is one of the most profound and seriously debated ideas of our time. It's pulling in everyone from philosophers and physicists to tech billionaires. And if you think this is just some fringe idea, you might be surprised who's taking it very, very seriously.
Right. When someone like Elon Musk says the odds of us being in base reality are 1,000,000,000 to 1, you know this isn't just a late-night dorm room conversation anymore. A single quote like that can catapult a really complex philosophical argument straight into the mainstream, and it immediately raises the stakes. So, what exactly is everyone talking about here?
At its core, the simulation hypothesis is actually pretty simple to grasp. It suggests that everything we see, everything we feel and experience, it's all part of a super sophisticated computer program. Think about it like this. A character in a video game has no idea they're made of code, right? Well, in the same way, we could be living out our entire lives completely unaware of the real world that exists outside of our own.
Now, to understand why this isn't just a wild guess, we don't even have to look out at the stars. All we have to do is look at our own screens. I mean, the most compelling argument for this whole theory starts with the path our own technology is on.
Just think about the sheer speed of progress we've seen in our own lifetimes. Seriously, in just about 50 years, we went from Pong, which was literally 2 rectangles and a dot, to these incredibly photorealistic open-world games and totally immersive virtual reality. Now, just imagine that trend continuing for another 1,000 years, or 1,000,000. Is it really that hard to believe that a civilization way, way older than ours could create a simulation that's completely indistinguishable from reality itself?
So this whole line of thinking was really formalized back in 2003 by an Oxford philosopher named Nick Bostrom. Now, he didn't come out and say we are in a simulation. Instead, he laid out this incredibly powerful logical argument, a trilemma he called it, that says one of 3 very different possibilities has to be true.
Bostrom's logic is kind of like a trap. It's brilliant. So, possibility 1, the great filter gets us. We go extinct from war, or climate change, or an asteroid, whatever, long before we get powerful enough to create these so-called ancestor simulations. Okay, maybe that's true. Possibility 2, we survive, but we just choose not to. Maybe we decide simulating conscious beings who can feel pain is unethical. Or, hey, maybe we just get bored and find something else to do. But if those first 2 possibilities are false, then that only leaves the third.
And this is where the statistical hammer drops. If advanced civilizations do run these simulations, they wouldn't run just one? No way. They'd run thousands, maybe billions of them. And in that scenario, the number of simulated conscious minds would just vastly, astronomically outnumber the real biological minds in base reality. So if you just play the odds, the chances that you happen to be one of the originals, they become almost 0.
So this powerful statistical argument has led people to start looking for clues, glitches in the matrix, right here in our own universe. But for every supposed clue, there's a pretty strong counterargument from the scientific community.
Proponents say the clues are hidden in the very fabric of our universe. I mean, take quantum mechanics. A particle's properties aren't even fixed until we measure them. To some people, this feels like a computer trying to save processing power by only rendering the details when a player is actually looking. Or how about the laws of physics themselves? Things like gravity or the speed of light, they seem perfectly fine-tuned for life to exist. If you change them by just a tiny fraction, poof, the universe as we know it is gone. Is that just a massive coincidence, or were they programmed that way?
But the critics have some very strong points, and the biggest one is this: the theory is unfalsifiable. You can't actually design an experiment to prove it's false, and some argue that makes it more like pseudoscience than a real scientific hypothesis. Then you've got Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually the best one. And what's simpler? That we live in a real universe, or that we live in a real universe that contains a giant supercomputer that's simulating our universe?
Okay, so the standard simulation hypothesis has this one glaring problem. If we're in a simulation, well, who's simulating the simulators? And who's simulating them? It's this infinite regress problem, turtles all the way down. But a newer, maybe even more profound theory offers a way out of that loop.
This question changes everything. It completely reframes the debate away from technology and hardware, and it points it towards something much more fundamental: consciousness itself. And this leads us to a much deeper idea.
the self-simulation hypothesis. This theory suggests there is no base reality with a giant computer. Instead, the universe is a kind of vast cosmic mind. And our physical reality is a thought, a self-simulation happening within that mind. So everything we see isn't code on a hard drive. It's a form of thought.
So let's break that down. The classic hypothesis is materialistic. It assumes a physical world outside our own. But this self-simulation idea, it flips that completely. It's a form of idealism, proposing that consciousness isn't something that comes from matter, it's the other way around. Matter emerges from consciousness. So we aren't just characters in the game, we are the co-creators of the game's reality through our own awareness.
And what's so elegant about this is that it completely solves that turtles all the way down problem. It's what philosophers call a strange loop. There's no first simulator. The universal consciousness emerges from the physical rules it creates, and those rules only exist as thoughts within that consciousness. It's a self-creating, self-powering loop with no real beginning and no end. Pretty wild, right?
So, okay, why does any of this matter? I mean, whether we're code in a computer or a thought in a cosmic mind, we still have to wake up and go to work tomorrow, right? But the implications of these ideas, they stretch way beyond physics and into the very core of what it means to be human.
If any of this is true, it changes, well, everything. Is the simulator our creator, a kind of God? Are our thoughts and our decisions really our own, or are we just following a script? What is the purpose of our existence if it's all an experiment or just a cosmic dream? And it forces us to ask these deep ethical questions. If our suffering isn't real, does that make it less tragic? Or does the fact that it's being experienced and possibly watched make it even more significant?
Ultimately, whether we're code or thought or just plain old stardust, our experience of reality is the only one we've got. So maybe the biggest question isn't what reality is made of, but how we choose to live inside of it. Does knowing you might be in a game change the way you decide to play? That's definitely something to think about.